A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Hello and welcome back to Oversharing. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Dr. Naomi Bernstein.
How's it going? How are you? This airs in March.
Yes. So when this comes out, I will be back from I've talked about on here, we do a once a year couples trip, just Jeff and I alone, which is like sometimes feels like the heartbeat of our relationship when we can be alone together for a few days. So
how many years have you been doing this?
Not as many as we should. I think we waited till the kids were a little bit older because they would, we're like, oh, we don't want to upset them by leaving for too long. And now we're like, whatever, we're going.
Yeah.
And they're old enough and they have lots of friends that they hang out with. And so it's easier to leave now. For all of you parents out there with young kids, it does get easier.
How long do you go for?
So we're going for, I think, 4 nights.
It's a good amount.
Yeah, which is nice. It was like a 3-4 debate. And we're like, if we're going to do it, let's do it.
4.
Yeah. So it's going to feel like we'll have time to get there, settle in, have a day settled, and then, leave. But it's just, I don't know. It's really hard, I think, to wear all the hats. And I just think it's hard to be taking care of other people and then also taking care of each other. So this is a really nice time where we can focus on each other, where it just is the only time where you don't have to take care of anyone for 4 days. I'm looking forward to it. And I've been trying to...
Who watches your kids?
My dad and my stepmom are coming in from New York just to watch them, which is really nice.
Great. Quality time.
Because they are really... I think a lot of grandparents like being alone with the grandchildren.
I've heard this before where it's like especially when they live out of state, like they come in and then the parents leave, which sounds like kind of weird because you're like, oh, we don't
get to see you
either.
Right.
But I think most people probably prefer to watch other people's kids like without them.
Right. Because you don't have to be like, you don't feel like you're being watched. You can kind of reenact your own parenting style that you had when you were the parent a little bit instead of having to try to mold to your child's parenting style.
And I just think it's like a little more fun. Like even when we were in town for Lila's bat mitzvah, we did Six Flags. And Mike and I somehow wound up in the car with like
all the kids.
But it was like a little more fun. You're like in charge. It's like a little like you're kind of creating whatever the dynamic is.
Yeah, I could see that. So I think they like it. And it gives us the freedom, and the kids, it's really a win-win for everybody. So it's awesome. It's a good time. We just end up feeling so much more connected because you just have that brain space free to really, one, for yourself. It's like the double whammy of I get to do whatever I want. I don't have to worry about who's happy with what and whose meal isn't right and who packing up bags and who needs to have sunscreen. Like a vacation with kids is not like a relaxing vacation. It's a vacation, but you're just like parenting in a different place. But this really feels like vacation. So
that's nice.
It's really lovely. And I've been trying to, it's given me motivation to start like a new workout routine too. Cause I have like a goal of a time where I want to be fit and, look my best. It's like our romantic time. And, so one recommendation that I have for anyone who's feeling stuck. It's funny. I was going to say I'm not a personal trainer. I technically am a personal trainer.
You are, right? Weren't you a personal trainer? I feel like I remember you talking about, you did a lot of like older people, like you were like personal trainer for like senior citizens or something. Maybe that was just on an occasional page.
No, I actually like did very little actual personal training, but I do have a personal training certification that I ended up not using. And
do you have to renew that, or is that
probably, I'm sure it's completely expired, but it exists. And I probably do have to renew it. But this is just more personal, like in terms of what I like. And as a psychologist, what I think would motivate some people is strength training. And I think I've talked about this on here before, because I think a lot of what we do when we're trying to work out is like to become thinner, which we've talked about, and why that's like kind of dangerous to have that as your goal. And because it implies maybe like eating less or all these things that can get really toxic if left unchecked. But I really like the idea of strength training for a few reasons. One, and I never really did this in my home. I always just like went to the gym and used some machines, but I literally got like 2 dumbbells. Personally, I got like a 7.5-pound dumbbell and a 15-pound dumbbell.
Okay.
For some people, you might want a little bit heavier, a little bit lighter, depending on but if you strength train for like 3 sessions of strength training where you're pushing weight when you're not used to pushing weight, you will immediately see and feel a difference in your body.
Immediately. Wow.
I think versus cardio, or if your goal is to lose weight, I think it takes longer to see the change. So it's a little bit less motivating. And you're also kind of shrinking yourself, which I don't think is great for feelings of being empowered. So I think if you don't usually do any weights, if you just do it doesn't even matter. Whatever, I watch a video and I follow along on a strength training video and I do these exercises, and literally that same day, or let's even call it after 2 to 3 strength training workouts, if your body's not used to it and you're doing more than you've done before, you will see and feel a difference in your body, which is really motivating.
What do you see? Muscles?
Yeah, you see like rounder muscles. You'll feel like, even kind of like when I'm washing myself in the shower, I just feel like a little bit more firmness in my body, or like you'll see it gets a little bit easier pretty quickly. Versus I think when you're doing more of these like cardio, I want to lose weight type activities, I think it takes longer to kind of feel and see the change. This is my personal experience, but I do think even if those of you that are nervous about lifting heavier, if you can lift a little bit heavier, I think some people are concerned with getting bulky or looking too muscular, but it's a great motivator, because if you lift a little bit heavier, you will see it. You will feel it. You will feel stronger. You will feel like a change in the tone of your muscle, which is kind of like, whoa, cool. Something's happening here. And it's also just functional. You can like feel a little bit stronger when you're taking out the trash, or you're bringing that package in from outside, or.
No, it's true. And I mean, it's interesting, I think, because as I've gotten, I've been married not as long as you, but for a bit now. I think a lot of the workout, all of the fitness stuff, I think for me, at least, I'll speak personally, used to be about like being attractive to the opposite sex, and like looking your best and feeling and being like the fittest and fitting into like the clothes and stuff. But I do find that now that I'm in my geriatric pregnancy,
crazy. Okay.
And I'm 36 years old.
Right.
And even dealing with like, or seeing my dad this past year, there is like a new motivation, or even from like, I'm recording this is our last episode before I'm taking a break for maternity leave. So I don't have any kids yet, but like there is this kind of new goal, which is like longevity.
Yeah.
Which is like, because even like in this pregnancy, like I've just suddenly started to get like back issues, like where like my back really hurts if I'm walking too long. And I kind of like, and I think I've always loved walking places, mostly because I feel like I'm getting the exercise and I'm burning the calories, but like also it's nice to feel like on the go and moving your body.
Right.
But now I do think there's like a new, maybe healthier goal to decrease pain later in life, to be fit, because like, again, I look at like my dad in his final years, and he's just like not very mobile, not very like, needing to sit a lot. And I do think the only silver lining for that is just like there is this motivation of like being strong or being fit. Cause like in terms of getting smaller, like eating less is 80% of that, I think they say. Right. Yep. So like the fitness is like nice, but it's not really going to move the needle as much as anything there. But the fitness stuff, I think the real motivation for fitness, at least for me now at this age, is like be a healthy older person with less chronic pain, chronic illness. Like this bit, when I think about the back thing, I'm like, why didn't I just appreciate when my back didn't hurt
Yeah.
all the time? And like, there is probably an age where you have things that hurt that just don't ever go back to not hurting. I would
Totally.
imagine.
You're 100% right. And myself being 10 years older than you, I do think there is this, like, I'm going to be 50, like, in not that long, which is crazy. I feel like I'm 24. Like, it's just
you look like you're 24.
Oh, thanks. Feels really weird. This is like an older age. And I do think there is more of this motivation, like you said, of just like health, and your body does change. Like, I am kind of experiencing that point where like the same amount of effort doesn't yield the same results. But that's why I think the strength training is really nice, because you get to see, like, you get to see the results, and you get to change your body in a shorter period of time. And like you said, functional. Like, I remember maybe 2 years ago, I was switching laundry from the washer to the dryer. So it was like this twisting, upward to lower twisting movement. And I completely threw my back out. Like, I was stuck. I couldn't move. And Jeff wasn't home, and the kids were here. And I was like screaming for the kids. Like, I don't know what they were going to do to help me.
The three of them lift you up together.
But it was because my core was weak. I wasn't exercising at the time. My core was weak, and this twisting motion just like completely tweaked my back. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm getting to that age where I can't do a normal motion, like taking stuff out of, switching it to the dryer without being like stuck, frozen with like intense back pain. And then I realized, yeah, I'm going to do crunches now, not because I want my 6-pack abs, but because I want that to never happen again.
I want to be able to do the laundry.
Yes,
right, yeah.
Exactly. It's about being fit, being strong, being empowered in your body.
Making sure that, again, I don't think it's about like living forever, but however long you do live, having a really good quality of life, which I do think fitness is much more helpful for that than
totally endless loads of laundry.
Yes.
No,
or just being able to like,
yes.
chase your kids around. Like, I think about,
totally. It's great. I just think as someone who probably did spend a long time just trying to be like lean, this is a great way to feel like you're being fit, you're taking care of your body, and you're seeing changes quickly without the goal being getting smaller.
Right.
Yeah. And I know there's some, people are afraid of like getting bulky.
I think you've got to do like pretty intense. I think that's like one myth, right? Like you have to do like be a real bodybuilder.
Yes. And if you go a little heavier, like you're saying, within reason, you will see these changes that are really fun to see. And it just keeps you motivated. Like, I feel like it's a little addictive now. I'm kind of like, how much can I push today? Am I stronger than yesterday? And wow, I like feel this, kind of tightness, and I see this roundness in my muscles. That's really just, feels good.
Well, that's when it changes. I think when you do something enough, then it changes from like a diet to a lifestyle, as they say, or I don't know, but an exercise versus a lifestyle. It's like just part of what you do. And then it just becomes sort of, there's like a certain point, I think, past which it just becomes easier to do because it's just what you do. It's you brush your every day. You brush your teeth. You don't have to like think about
talk yourself into
teeth?
it.
Do I have to brush my teeth? It's just like you've been doing it every day. It's just part of what. Hopefully, it's just part of what you do, and then it's not. It's not as big of a thing because it doesn't even have that much thought put into it. And I feel like with working out, I've found at least like there becomes a critical amount where you're like, this is just what I do.
The other part that I think is helpful personally is to have it like accessible anywhere in your home. Like what I've been doing is 2 dumbbells. That's it. And I love Pilates and I love yoga and I love getting in the car and going to a class. But then there's like so many points there that can become a problem versus like after we're done with this recording, I'm just going to go upstairs and do like 3 weight training exercises, whatever it is.
COVID helped me get to that place.
Yeah.
Too. I used to go into a fitness studio like so often. And now I just do it. Then I started doing it in my apartment, my 1-bedroom apartment. And now it's just again, it's part of what I do. It makes it so much easier when you don't have to like leave and come back. You can like squeeze it between a meeting or something like that.
Yeah. I've personally always been like one of those people that like, I don't feel well if I don't exercise. Like it's very connected to my mental health. So it comes more naturally. But even if that's not you and you feel fine when you don't exercise and you don't feel like it's connected to your mental health, it can feel just empowering.
Give it a go. Let us know if you take the sun.
Yeah.
Spring is coming.
Yeah, it's coming. All right.
And I want to hear about your trip. Where are you going?
We're going to Mexico. It's great from Texas. It's like a short flight. It's always warm, pretty inexpensive to travel. And yeah.
All right. Well, guys, if you want, we're going to get into your questions. If you want to write into the show, oversharing at betches.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 646-363-6294. If you want to subscribe, you get 2 bonus episodes a month. You get all the episodes ad-free and a day early. So check out our subscription episodes, or you can get more involved and join one of Dr. Naomi's therapy groups. It's a great way to get direct access to Dr. Naomi and her wisdom without being a full one-on-one patient, which I'm sure is a little more expensive.
Yes. Yeah. No. So this is great. And I like to know what's going on in the lives of all my patients. So that includes all the group members. Like I'm at the end of every session, I'm always calling people to reach out to me, email me. I like to, I feel very connected to my patients. I want to know what's going on in their lives. So part of joining the group is that we do get to establish a relationship, which is really nice. And I try to, as much as possible, be accessible and supportive inside and outside of group time. So that is true that you do get access to that as well. But the community, the group, come join us, naomibernstein.com.
All right. Well, let's get into it. I'll read our first email. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. Love the pod and the insight you provide. You guys really give great advice, which I'm in desperate need of right now. I'm writing to get some advice about a wedding I'm involved in later this year. My childhood best friend is getting married, and I'm truly happy for her and her partner. That said, her wedding plans are starting to really stress me out. She's having a destination wedding in Savannah, Georgia. The wedding is on a Sunday with events starting Friday, so it's already a long weekend commitment. On top of that, there's also a joint Bachelorette planned for the spring. It's scheduled to be 5 days long over 4th of July weekend. The expectation is that everyone shares rooms and potentially beds. While I know her friends and I'm friendly with a few of them, I'm not comfortable sharing a room or a bed with someone I don't know well for that long. It's one thing to go away with a group of my friends, but entirely different to be trapped in a house of girls I only know surface level. I feel that. Between the destination wedding and the Bachelorette, I'll be spending thousands of dollars. I love my friend, but it's starting to feel like I'm sacrificing a huge amount of time, money, and emotional energy for one person's wedding. I'm also stressed about the logistics, fronting money for over 20 people for reservations, figuring out how much food to order without over or under buying, and constantly being asked by other bridesmaids to chip in for decorations and party supplies. I get weekly texts about spending more money. I feel checked out, which makes me feel guilty. But when I think about how much of my year and my finances are being consumed by this wedding, I shut down. I should also mention that the wedding and Bachelorette are in areas known for nightlife and clubbing, which isn't really my vibe at all. I guess my main question is, how do you set boundaries around finances and time in situations like this without sounding like a jerk or an unsupportive friend? At what point is it okay to say, this is too much for me, even when you love the person getting married? Or is it me? Should I just suck it up and follow the crowd? I don't want to ruin her wedding or our friendship, but I feel like brides have gone off the rails with how much they're asking their friends to commit to. Thanks so much. I'd really appreciate your perspective or any advice you can give. Sincerely, something borrowed, not broke. I know we get like iterations of this probably about like specific wedding things, but I think this email speaks to sort of like a feeling or a sentiment that a lot of people get as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
For like how to approach the whole thing when it feels like, and I can understand the dilemma of being like, I'm happy for my friend. I want to be there for all her milestones, but I also don't want this to be my whole year.
And I think the point that she's touching on, which is a good point, is like, it starts to now feel like I'm checking out of this whole thing because it's too much. Whereas like in the beginning, if it's like a couple of things or God forbid if it was like just the wedding.
Right. You'd be
Everyone
excited.
would show up like so excited because it's your one big day. But if you have like, you know, in this case, they have a whole 5-day bachelorette, which sounds excessive.
Yeah.
And then a 3-day wedding, which I guess is normal.
Sure, there's a shower.
Right. Then there's it's like after a while, I think what she's touching on is like, this is making me feel disconnected about this whole process when I want to be excited for this person. And I think the other thing that happens here more globally than this particular email is this creates kind of like, if I'm taking 4 days off of work, 3 days off of work, I'm spending thousands of dollars. Now it becomes like a contagious thing because now I got to get mine back.
Yeah. Now I have expectations for what I need from you when I'm getting married. And a lot of the times, I think another layer of this is sometimes by the time this person maybe gets married, the other person has a couple kids and they're like, well, I don't want to do all of that. And I've got other responsibilities.
Yes.
So then the other person winds up feeling like gypped of getting their reciprocity, which again, shouldn't be what it's all about. But I think that like it can feel that way when you're doing a lot of stuff that you don't really want to do for this other person.
Totally. And it just enhances this culture of like, your wedding is like the pinnacle of your life, which I just think is kind of, you know.
Which it used to be. It's like sort of one of those traditions that hasn't been, it's almost gotten more intense. I feel like bachelorettes are like a relatively new thing. It used to just be bachelor parties.
Right.
I don't think the bachelorettes are like a modern or an older thing. And even with the bachelor parties, it used to be like everyone goes one night out in the city that you live in and you have a night out. And now it's like a whole trip. I mean, I shouldn't talk. I did all of the stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you were like in it, you know, and you're wrapped up in the whole world of like, this is my big moment, and you get in the bubble. And, you know, I think people are excited. Your friends are excited to do things. And there, like you said, there's a dynamic where if it's at the beginning, if you're in the beginning wave of this, everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's a girls' weekend. Like, yay.
And then towards the end.
Right. People are kind of tired of spending the money and all of it. So I think there's places where she can definitely set boundaries here. I think with the bachelorette weekend, that's a great place to really make yourself be a little bit more selfish there because it's not the wedding. Which is the big thing. And I think if you say, hey, I can't come the whole time, but I'll be there for the beginning or I'll be there for the end. And even if it was like, you know, if you can't, we had this question a few weeks ago about like having your own room, who gets their own room. If that's something that's important to you, and I get that, if you're spending, you know, $1,000 on a weekend, you're entitled, I think, to be comfortable on that weekend. And if you getting your own hotel room at a nearby place, if you're a little bit more of an introvert or you're not super into the whole everyone hang out vibe, I don't think as adults, you can control where somebody like falls asleep. Like if you want to hang out until, you know, 1:00 in the morning with everybody and then take an Uber back and fall asleep in your own comfortable space, I think that's very reasonable. If that's what's going to make you feel better about this weekend.
I totally agree with that. I could see why it would feel weird. It sounds like she's planning a lot of this because she's like, says she's making reservations and
for 20 people, right?
For 20 people, which is like another part of it where it's like, I don't even know these people. I'm doing all this work for these people, which is kind of a tough situation. I assume she's a bridesmaid or something, where I can see where now she's like in this hole where it's like, what is she going to drop out of planning? It's kind of tough. And that's why I would suggest almost, I think for anyone listening, and maybe not for this, it might be too late for the listener, but when you have someone else's wedding, I would think about two things. How much time do I have and want to spend on this thing? How much money do I want to spend on this thing? And I think a budget, it's tough because like sometimes you can afford something, you just don't really want to pay for it. That almost becomes harder where it's like, yeah, it's not that I can't afford to go to the wedding for the bachelorette for 5 days, or it's not that but a budget can just be how much you want to spend. It doesn't have to be how much is completely actually limiting to you. Mm-hmm. So if you can go into these things, I think with like that in mind, then that helps with you kind of boundarying what your commitments are. Even like I'm going into this thing, I'm not sharing a room. That's not something with someone I don't know. So like that's a boundary that I'm setting, like kind of like right off the bat. But I'm happy to do, and also like what you are willing to do.
Yes.
I'm happy to do X, Y, and Z. Like I will make the hotel reservations. I will make, let's say, and then she can control the rooming maybe. Like I'll make the hotel reservations. I'll make one dinner reservation. And then like the rest of it is on whatever other person. That's how much time I have this year. And again, how much even with time, it's like not even how much time do I physically have. How much time do I want? Do I want to budget towards this without feeling like resentful or overwhelmed with it?
No, I totally agree. I think the fear is that it's going to affect the relationship, it's going to affect the friendship, or somehow her friend is going to be offended. And that might happen. And I think it's also one of the hardest parts about being in a relationship is tolerating other people's displeasure with your boundaries or with, your decisions. So I do think that another piece of this can be talking to the bride about whatever your boundaries are. Like, hey, I'm only going to stay at I can only commit to going to the Bachelorette for a few days. I can help plan those days when I'm there, but I'm probably going to leave on whatever it is, Sunday morning. And just like having that genuine conversation where it's like, I hope like I still love you so much. It's no indication of how excited I am for you or my feelings. Like I want to be there for you in this other way, which is not like hanging out with you and your friends that I don't really know. That's not the way that I really want it. You just have to say this part, but that's not the way I want to connect with you. I'm going to leave on Sunday morning, but I would love to come over while you're figuring out this or help you do the table settings, come over to help you do the seating chart if that's something you want help with.
Yeah. Or I'd love to take you out if maybe I don't want to go to the Bachelorette at all. And I'm instead, again, might be late if she's the one planning the reservations, but let's say she weren't. I would love to take you out for a really fun night on the town. Whatever night I think like I can't make it to the Bachelorette. I mean, to me, like that's almost sometimes so many times this kind of thing happens where I feel like it's like the Bachelorette, you kind of feel like you need to invite everyone, even if they have like multiple groups that wouldn't mesh, or you have a one friend, let's say you're like looking for the Vegas vibe and you have friends that don't, but you're not going to not invite them because it's not their vibe, but like you don't really mind if they don't go, but you wouldn't say that. And so that's why so much of this stuff is tough. Whereas like if I had a friend like that and she was like, I'm not going to make it, let's go out to like do the intimate spa day that we like really enjoy as friends, I would be like, great.
Relieved.
Like, yes. Like I don't have to make sure this person is having a good time on something that's really more my vibe than hers. That I know that that's not how we enjoy our friendship in this way. That's the annoying thing about having these huge Bachelorette parties where people don't know each other or all have to align on wanting to do the same things, which you wouldn't take a 20-person group trip.
Right. I wonder if we could try to change the culture around this. I always talk about how weddings kind of like bring the underlying stuff to the surface for couples of like, oh, we're going to deal with your parents. And now we're going to talk about finances and, all this, family stuff or whatever. And it's it serves its purpose in like forcing us to talk about these things. I wonder if it could be the same in friendships where you're like, hey, and I had a friend do this once too, where they were like, I was inviting them as like part of another group and they just kind of kept saying no. And then eventually we had this really honest conversation where they were like, I just don't really like mesh with that group. And now this conversation was probably 10 years ago, but I've saved myself 10 years of like this awkward, I'm still inviting you to do these things that I know that you don't really want to do. And so now I don't feel like bad about excluding her. I know she doesn't really want to do it. And we do our own separate thing. So I think friendships maybe could the problem is everyone's so afraid of upsetting the bride that we can't have these honest conversations. This might be a good time to reevaluate friendships, work on communication, find out a little bit more about each other's finances and budgets and like grow the friendship a little deeper by talking about how all this wedding planning stuff is affecting our relationship.
Little like friendship couples therapy.
Yes.
You should do a weddings group.
Yeah.
Groups.
Totally. And I think a lot comes up around this with like, you know, you choosing me over someone else. And are you there for my dress fitting? And you were there for someone else's dress fitting. And if we could just see these instead of opportunities for disconnection as opportunities for like real conversation and connection, it might be a good growth point for friendships too, because the wedding is not just about the couple, clearly.
Right.
20 other people with expectations.
Yeah. And I will say, it sounds the friends having a destination wedding and doing a bachelorette, which I did as well. But I did that fully with when I sent out any of the emails or the dates, it was always like, totally, completely understand if you cannot do 2 trips this year. If you can do anything, I'd rather you go to the wedding.
Right. You can only do one. You wrote that on there. That's great.
Yeah. If you can only do one, I'd rather go to the wedding. Big year, like absolutely no pressure to go to all of this stuff. And I think you have to mean it, because it's like you can do, that's what I'm saying. Like you can do whatever you want. Like I did all of that stuff. It's just like, you can't expect everyone. Some people do want to go to everything and are like, great, more trips, the better. Like I'm looking to have as much fun as possible, and they're in. And those are the people you want there anyway. So you just really need to I think if you give people an out, you can do whatever you want. It just always has to be prefaced with like, would love anyone who wants to go to both to do this. Totally understand if it's too much. If you're going to go to one thing, pick this thing. So maybe some people would pick the Bachelorette. Who knows?
Yeah. And I agree. That would be great if that came from the bride or the groom. But I think it is also possible, if that doesn't happen, for you to set that boundary on your own. And maybe you do upset someone a little bit, but I think it's okay. And I think if your friendship is meant to be, it'll be okay. Like I have many friends that, because I also had a destination wedding, didn't come to like my bridal shower or my bachelorette party. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to get mad about this, because I know, especially when it's someone who I know doesn't have like all the money in the world to be traveling all over the place. So your friendship can handle it if you communicate it well. And I think offer another connection point of like, it's not even going to be us connecting at this 20-person bachelorette. I'm just going to kind of be another body here. Let's do a spa day. Let me come over and help you with some other thing that we can just do together that'll be more meaningful for both of us.
And again, if it's a real friend, I think, and you explain it in that way, I think it's going to go over well. And if it doesn't go over well, you have other issues in your friendship.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Let's do a Betch Assist.
Hi, Dr. Naomi and Jordana. I love listening to the pod, and congrats, Jordana, on the baby girls. I felt like the two of you could give me a good perspective with my dilemma that's causing me a lot of anxiety. I'm currently pregnant with my second child, who's due in April. My son will be 21 months when my daughter is born. Both sets of grandparents live out of state. When my son was born, they all came into town the day we got home from the hospital and stayed for a week for his bris, Jewish circumcision ceremony. My mother-in-law stayed an additional week, and my mom drove and lives in the next state over. Came back a few days after she left. My in-laws flew here, so we let them stay in our guest room, and my mom had to stay in a hotel, then stayed with us when she came back. It was not good to have them here at the same time, and my mom does not like my in-laws. She's also extremely neurotic and overbearing and causes me more stress when she's around. Both sides are not that helpful.
The worst of all worlds.
Yes, right?
They want to be around and not do anything.
My mom has physical limitations, so she can't carry a baby or a toddler on the stairs and can't get my son in and out of the car for daycare. My mother-in-law smokes cigarettes, and while I dealt with it for my first, I have a lot of guilt that I allowed her to go outside to smoke, then come in and wash her hands and hold him. I can't even get into dynamics with my father-in-law here. He's not helpful with babies. The biggest thing we would need help with at first is getting our son to daycare. Neither side is able to help with this. I feel this pressure that I have to let them come meet their granddaughter within the first few weeks that she's born. But bottom line is, neither side was the most helpful last time and just added more stress. Also, we are moving our son to the current guest room and turning it into his room. So we won't have a room for them to stay with us anymore. How should I handle this? Thanks, a stressed out pregnant lady.
You know, this reminds me of something we talk about on You Up, which isn't this particular issue, but, you know, when someone sleeps with someone and then they regret it, but they want to keep seeing the person, but they felt like they went too fast, is like, just because you did doesn't mean you have to going forward.
Yeah.
And I
like
think
the
that,
analogy.
Yeah, that is something I think to keep in mind here. Just because you did this last time doesn't mean that has to be the way it is all the time.
Totally. And you have the built-in excuse of like, that's going to be your son's room now. So you actually don't technically have the space, even though I'm sure the baby's going to be in your room. And so the other room's still going to be open, but like,
or whatever it is. I think you can say like, whatever happened last time was just like a little bit too chaotic for us. This time we're looking for, for it to just be us for the first however many weeks. We would love for you to come this day and this day.
And you might get a, what do you mean? I was planning on staying with you, or I can't believe that. Like, why not? Or whatever. You might get some of that. And that is not easy, right? If you get that type of pushback, and you'll have to say, I just think, kind of reiterate, I just think this is what's best for us in the beginning here as we're adjusting to as a new family of 4. But I would love to have you, what they want is to be involved with the baby. I'd love to have you come and help in this way. Or I'd love to have you interact with the baby in this way, which is you can come over, in the morning at this time, or after I drop the son off at daycare, you can come in, whatever your setup is, where you can let them know, hey, not this, but this. I think that's a great way to set a boundary, is like, I'm rejecting your attempt to connect in this particular way, which is to stay at my house, but I'm going to invite you to connect in this other way, which is the way that is going to work for me, especially when you're in a vulnerable state, like having just had a baby.
Yeah. And if they don't want to do that, then that's
and they're
on
the
them.
one that's rejecting that other option. So now you're, kind of putting them in a position to have to own the disconnect. I think what happens sometimes with parents and in-laws is like, they ask for something, you have to reject it. And then they're like, take this victim role of like, I'm being rejected, versus if you offer an alternate solution and they say no, now they're the ones that are rejecting that connection. So that might feel a little bit like they have to own it.
I think it is hard in these scenarios. In the scenario she's describing, where neither parent lives super close. So it's easier to have like a casual interaction when someone can kind of like come by and then leave.
Mm-hmm.
But she says her mom lives in the next state. Her in-laws flew here. So it's like, I'm sure she feels like guilt of like, I'm going to keep these kids from them, or it feels like that. Or if they're flying all the way in or driving all the way in, it needs to be really intensive.
Right. Like sleepovers, which I think sounds like that's part of what she doesn't want. It's just people staying at her house. And I think that's very reasonable. And she can just say, you can come at 9 a.m. and, you can stay the majority of the day, or whatever she's comfortable with.
Here's a list of hotels nearby.
Yeah.
Are great.
Yeah.
And again, they might be like, I'm not coming in to stay at a hotel, which is, again, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, all you can do is say what you're able to commit to.
Right. And I think the other piece that's helpful here when you're setting boundaries, which seems to be maybe the theme here of these emails here, but when you're setting boundaries, really the delivery and the tone and that longingness to connect. Like when you said your New Year's resolution is to like change your tone when setting boundaries, I think that's a big piece of it. And then the offering of the genuine offering of like, but I would love to connect with you in this way. A sleepover, you staying here is not going to be the way, but I would love to, like, I'm so excited for you to come and I can't wait. I love this dish that you make. I would love for you to come for dinner. It would be so helpful if you could make maybe they're not good at babysitting, but maybe they're good at cooking or whatever the thing is. Like I would love
for you to clean my bathroom. It means so much to me.
Kind of true.
Yeah.
But yeah, like something like that, like, oh, I can't wait for you to come over. Like at 9 a.m., the baby takes a nap, but probably is going to, if he's anything like his brother, he'll take a nap at this time or he'll want to sleep at this time. And like, I would, love for you to hold him while he sleeps or whatever the thing is that you envision that they could do that I think they just want to feel involved and connected and helpful. And I think if it's like the rejection of that's going to be hard to say, here's a list of hotels when they stayed the last time. Like that is probably going to be tough, but breathe. You can do it. You can deliver that message and then warm it up with, and then in the mornings, like I would love, even if it's like, oh, my husband makes these delicious waffles. Like I'd love you to come over for waffles and you can hold the baby and he's going to make us whatever it is.
Whatever you can commit to.
We want you to. We're excited for you to do this, but not this.
Yeah. And I think the earlier you can say that so that that's already in their mind. So it's not like the baby's born and now they're hearing. Like the longer they have to sort of get used to this idea of this new way of doing things, I think is best.
I do want to push back a little bit on one piece that she writes about, like that she feels guilty that her mother-in-law smoked cigarettes and then washed her hands and then held the baby. Like,
I think that's fine, right?
Yeah.
If she's washing her hands. If she wasn't washing her hands, I would be like, that would be really annoying.
Yeah. I mean, she's washing her. I certainly wouldn't feel guilt about it. I don't think even if she didn't wash her hands, I don't think there's harm that's going to come to the baby unless she's like sticking her fingers in their mouth.
I mean, I could get you don't want your baby smelling like a cigarette.
Yes. Like I get the concept of that. It's
Where
kind of
is
gross.
Their mother?
Yeah.
Right, that's more or less.
That's funny.
I don't think it's a good look to have your baby smell like an ashtray.
Yeah, totally get it. But if she's washing her hands and also it's not harming the baby, but yes, I wouldn't like it either. But I certainly wouldn't feel guilty about it. And like, that is an option. Like I would just explore if that is an option for someone who can take him to daycare and do all the things that you need, and you're just rejecting it because you feel guilty that she smoked cigarettes and then washed her hands. I would look at that as like, why are you really rejecting that help? If that is actually someone who could, out of the 4 grandparents, if that is one who could be helpful and she is open to washing her hands after she smokes, maybe you want to consider taking that help. And if you're not, maybe there's some other reason why you're not open to taking that help.
Good thing to consider. And also you have your husband to relay your boundaries to his parents.
Yes. Yeah.
You only have to deal with your own mother.
All right. Well, good luck. Keep us posted.